everyone. Today we have a special guest with us, Reece Epstein. He's the founder and CEO of Reputation Elevation. Thanks for joining us, Reece.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here.
Great. Reece is his Reputation Elevation is a digital marketing agency that specializes in ABA therapy practices. So, Reece, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. So I started Reputation Elevation a little more than 10 years ago now. At the time, I had no idea what ABA therapy was. And then about, let's say, 6 years ago, it was in 2018, a colleague of mine in the web design space referred an ABA therapy practice to me. And that company was really a new startup. And I had never heard of ABA therapy before. But we were able to help them go from their initial 6 cases to about 24 cases in about 6 months. And I realized, wow, this is working really great. I want to find more clients like this. I started to make connections with people in the ABA space and got some more clients. And from there, just grew. So today, almost all of my clients are in ABA therapy. There's some exceptions out there. And if someone's not in ABA therapy, they shouldn't be trying to reach out. But most of my clients are in ABA. I've gotten to really know the industry, speak the lingo a little bit, and really enjoy helping ABA therapy organizations to grow their businesses.
That's really exciting. And that's one of the things about our ABA field growing, because we are getting more and more professionals like yourself who are becoming more knowledgeable about ABA and how to help us ABA entrepreneurs like start our companies or help grow our companies. So that's really exciting that you hopped on the ABA bandwagon there.
Yeah, so that's one of the amazing things for the field, that there are a lot of businesses now starting to support ABA therapy. And that's important because ABA therapy has a lot of very specific needs that you don't find in other industries. And of course, I could talk about that from a marketing perspective, but I'm sure that in almost virtually any sort of field of professional services, there's going to be something that ABA therapy needs that maybe is different from what people in other industries or even different forms of medical practice are going to need.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the other piece that, when we started talking, we wanted to talk to your customers. Just so happened that one of our customers was one of your customers, and it was, you know, a lot of people claim that they're helping, right? But it like the feedback we got from your customers was like you back up what you claim. Like we didn't hear a single bad thing about you. It was all good. In fact, it was he gave me too many leads. I can't keep up. And so can you imagine, everyone listening? Can you imagine having so many leads that you can't keep up? Right. That's a good thing to have. It can lead to other problems like growing too fast, but we're not going to get into that today. So yeah, it was nice to hear, and I'm very appreciative that you were willing to come on the podcast and discuss with us how to get some more clients. So yeah.
I think of marketing for ABA therapy practices as sort of like matchmaking at scale. And why is that? Because if you think about making a match, right? So every person is their own world with their own sort of likes, dislikes, personality, history, everything, right? And so, and people are complicated. And in ABA therapy, there are a number of really important factors that have to work out in order for a family to be able to enroll their child in therapy with an ABA practice. It's not like McDonald's, where you can sort of go to the drive-through, and as long as you have money, cash or a credit card, and can place an order, you're going to get a burger. It's a little different than that. You have to make sure that the family has insurance that you are in network with, unless you're going to do a single case agreement. And you also have to make sure that the child has a diagnosis for autism, and the child is going to be in the age range that you service, and that the family lives in proximity to either a center or lives somewhere where your therapist can reach them. And beyond that, they have to decide that they're going to want to choose you to work with you instead of any other practice. And so AB is a little different. For a physician's office, most people can just go to a physician and that's going to be their physician. That's that. Whereas with ABA, there's really a lot of qualification. And so what that means is that for ABA therapy, you don't want to just sort of say, okay, I'm going to do every last possible thing out there with equal attention. You want to figure out where are you most likely to find those parents who they themselves and their child will meet the qualifications necessary for service to occur. And so any discussion of marketing for an ABA therapy practice is going to start really with, first of all, sort of figuring out, well, how do your requirements as a practice relates to the channels out there available for finding clients for you? Sometimes it's really clear cut and obvious that a certain organization should be on Meta or they should be on Google. And sometimes it's a lot less obvious. And you have to sort of, you may even try your different options. But you want to start with that understanding ahead of time and make sure you're looking for the right place to find the parents whose kids will benefit the most from you and who are able to benefit. And then as well, it's important to think about marketing as really a numbers game, because no matter what way you go about marketing your practice, and no matter how easy you make it for a family to qualify, meaning let's say you're in home in a broad geography with every conceivable payer, you take up ages 1.5 to 21, right? You make it as easy as possible. There are still going to be people who reach out to you who aren't really a fit and they want services, but you can't give it to them. So you're gonna have to think ahead of time through, well, what numbers do I need? So meaning if I want to get, let's say 5 cases per month on average, well, how many phone calls do I have to have? What channel do I want those phone calls to come from? Based on that channel and knowing the characteristics of people who respond through that channel, well, how many people do I need to fill out a form or call me or interact with the chatbot or something to get that conversation going? So that is something to plan out ahead of time, based on a clarity about what your practice is, who you're trying to service, and then what different channels would be appropriate based on those factors.
And do you find when you're doing the digital marketing, because this is something that I hear often from BCBA business owners, like, yeah, I tried Facebook, it didn't work, right? And I tried Facebook, it didn't work, right? And so I maybe threw $100 at it, but I didn't do any A/B testing. Like I didn't have like 3 ads and maybe spend $5 on each ad to see which one was better. Like I did none of that. Like do you just, if you're going after social media, do you recommend not doing it unless you're going to actually check the data and make sure that you know which one is giving you value and which one isn't? Like how do you recommend somebody start that?
Okay, so I want to clarify the terms that I'll use for this, which is for social media. For this context, let's talk about what you're referring to, which is paying for your social media ads. You can go to Facebook or Instagram or any social media platform, and you can start posting stuff for your business and not pay money to do that. And of course, the most common place people do that is Facebook and Instagram. However, since around 2016 or 2017, Facebook, now Meta, decided that they're essentially going to not let small businesses or almost any businesses get a lot of traction unless they pay for it, right? But once you're paying for it, so the convenience option is when you're in your Facebook page, you can go ahead and boost a post, and you get sort of a miniature version of Facebook's advertising tools. Okay, so now I personally will always recommend, if you're serious with your clients, you go ahead and pay for your ads, because otherwise not much is likely to happen. Now, yes, you absolutely need to be proactive in managing your advertising, because it is way too easy to throw money down the drain and not see any return on it. So yeah, absolutely. You want to be very attentive to what you're doing, whether it's social media ads or search ads, or if you're doing SEO, whatever you're doing, definitely be attentive, have a plan, and make sure that you are checking in on things in a proactive manner.
Well, how do you know which platform you should be active on?
Great question. So there are two sort of ways I start to look at it. One is what insurances are you taking, and then what ages are you servicing? Okay. So now these are general rules, and based on your location and specifics of your practice, these may not apply exactly to any particular one organization, but this is what I will say is true for, I would say, 80% of practices. So generally speaking, 80% of the time, if you're a company that is able to accept Medicaid and a decent list of MCOs under your state's Medicaid program, and additionally, maybe you have some commercial plans as well that you take, then typically I will lean towards saying that Meta is the way to go. And that's because while people aren't going to Facebook or Instagram usually to look for services, they're just going there for entertainment or distraction or to message someone. Um, it is still, if you have the right system, it is quite doable and feasible to get people to reach out to you for to contact you about your services. Now, with people on Meta, I always tell clients ahead of time, expect half the people reach out to you to actually be unreachable. So they fill out a form and you follow up with them and there's no response. It could be they just like clicking things for fun and don't mind even clicking to send their phone number to you. It was a bot. We don't know why. I don't know why it happens, but it happens. So you can sort of just it's double the cost of lead to get your cost for someone who will be on the phone with you. And of those on the phone, there will be plenty of people who don't have a diagnosis yet, or whose child's too old, or they're too far away, or it's actually grandpa, or it's someone who does not recall or has no clue like why you're calling, even though they actually did submit the information to you. Now, all that happens, but because you have the potential for so much volume, it's worth it. And we're able to see incredible results with Facebook and Instagram, or rather Meta collectively, ads for our clients, subject to certain conditions, which we can talk about later, like marketing automation and having the right process on the phone. Um, so usually that brute force, so to speak, of just having lots and lots of people reach out to you all the time will make up for the fact that a lot of leads will just be not very good. Now, if you are only taking commercial insurance, um, that doesn't mean automatically that Meta won't work. And we do see Meta working for some clients who do not take Medicaid. However, Meta does tend to return a lot of Medicaid uh, results to you. And so my default recommendation to companies that cannot take Medicaid is that they take a Google approach. Now, another factor to consider is age. So if you're only looking for kids who are ages, let's say 1.5 to 5 for your center, maybe 6 for your center, then that also may take Google to be, let's say, on the same level of recommendation as Meta. And that's because your prime audience, when that's the age you're looking for, is people who just got the diagnosis. They have a fresh diagnosis. Now they're looking for services. And where do they go? Google. That's where you want to be.
Sure, sure.
And that doesn't mean you can't get younger cases on Meta. You certainly can. It certainly helps that if you communicate through imagery and video and text, that you're looking for younger cases. And even though you'll do that, you'll still get some older cases reach out to you. It's part of the game, right? But even if you take Medicaid, I'd start looking a little more closely at Google if that is a concern of yours, that you want to have the younger cases. Now, that itself will come with a caveat. As everybody knows, there are some regions of the country where it is almost impossible to get a diagnosis for autism because the wait list is 2 or 3 years long. And so maybe at 2 years old, the parent realizes, wait, we better get a diagnosis here, or at least an assessment, and they get on the wait list, but their child's not going to be able to get a diagnosis until they're 4 anyway. So if you're in an area like that, you just have to be aware that you're going to have an added layer of challenge if you're specifically looking for that narrow slice of the population that has shown symptoms of autism development that points to be concerned to get on a wait list and has had the diagnosis but is not yet 6 years old. So that's also something just to be aware of, that certain factors in your local area can complicate matters. Now, within Meta, again, I always will recommend you pay for ads there and not just rely on posting things to your page. Posting things to your page isn't a bad thing to do. It's cosmetic. As once you see your page, you'll see you have posts there. And no, that's perfectly nice. But I wouldn't stake your client acquisition strategy on that. On Google, you have two ways to go, paid and organic, and they're both great. Whereas on Meta, I'm not going to recommend organic so much, except maybe to have someone take a few minutes every month to do something there. But on Google, yeah, organic is great, and search ads are also great. There are different reasons why business may choose one over the other, but they definitely both are in play.
Wow. It's like you've been there before.
Yeah. And do you recommend, I know we're talking about Google ads and search ads in particular, but YouTube, is that a place where you would spend money, or do you just kind of, no, that's not the place?
If you have the ability to produce really good video, then you might want to give it a go. There's nothing wrong with it. Usually, I find that it's just very challenging to produce videos that really are going to in the context of Meta. The bar isn't so high for a video to work. Yeah, it could be 3 seconds long and just say something about AV therapy and with the right style, and that already will get you somewhere. Whereas on YouTube, obviously, there's a different set of expectations and that people have for videos there. So just as a practical matter, we usually don't go there, but there's nothing, in theory, there's no reason why you couldn't.
Can you apply any of these strategies to helping, recruit more staff?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a funny thing because uh, one of the great things we like to see is when clients tell us we are full and we are totally at capacity, but usually that means they don't need our services anymore. So we started to look into, okay, well, how can we help out on the staffing side? And so Meta is not so useful for hiring staff. The reason for that is they have a specific set of rules for any job related ads. And if you try to, you can't circumvent them because they're really good at figuring out their ads or job ads. And once you have indicated that your ad is a job ad, they're going to eliminate all the best targeting options you'd want to use in order to narrow down your audience. So I guess the one case where maybe it could work is if you're going to be looking for behavior technicians and you're not looking for RBTs specifically because maybe there aren't enough in your area to rely solely on that. And so you don't mind having an advertisement go out to masses of people, no matter what their background is. And then you're going to use a clever system for, without any labor on your part, quickly sorting through and filtering out people who would not be well qualified for the job positions, no waste time on bad interviews. Then maybe you could do Facebook there. But once you have run job ads in your Facebook ads account, it tends to attract a greater level of scrutiny, and Facebook will even be suspicious that your non-job ads are actually job ads in disguise. We've seen. So this is it can end up being something that practically is problematic. So if you are going to do it, my suggestion would be to actually get a second ad account just for that purpose, and to have the expectation ahead of time that you're going to need an automated system for screening people, which you can discuss how to do that. But that's the situation where you want to use Facebook. Otherwise, everyone's favorite option is Indeed. Obviously, everyone's going to Indeed and using that to get staff, and Indeed definitely can work. I hear different things from different clients. Some clients are saying, "Wow, it's great. We just get tons of people there." Others are pulling out their hair in frustration and paying large amounts of money for Indeed. So just a quick word or two about Indeed. Number one, you want to look for the option to set a daily budget for your campaigns. And you usually do not need as high a budget as Indeed will try to suggest to you that you need. Okay? And two is you're going to have to find the right balance between differentiating yourself from the other gazillion ABA therapy companies out there in your area also promoting jobs without being cheesy. And I've seen people try to go overboard and they have like 8 questions that start with "do you?" Do you want to make a difference in the world? Do you want to be a growing field? It's like how many you ask, maybe one do you question is okay, but like 8 is a bit too much. Okay, so that's Indeed. So sometimes clients will need a little help there to sort of fix things up. LinkedIn is a great place to post jobs, of course. There are different ways of doing it. The easiest way is you post a job. There's a feature for that in the top right corner of your screen, post a job. And then you can have one free job at a time. And beyond that, you're going to have to pay for it. But LinkedIn job posts can be pretty good. And then you have their professional advertising tools, which are a step more complicated, but will give you greater reach and finer control over the audience that you're reaching with your job posts or ads. So that can be a way to go. And then Google also can be really, really good for, especially on the first on the organic side. So most companies, when they're doing their SEO strategy, are not paying enough attention to having Google not only rank you for searches like AB therapy, but also searches like BCBA salaries in my area or whatever it might be, right? Or RBT jobs. So you definitely want to optimize your website for that if staffing is a concern for you. And on the paid ad side inside of Google, yes, there is something you can do there. One market we have seen that is very reachable on Google is people who are just researching the idea of becoming an RBT, and they're maybe even looking for this, and you have a great opportunity to step in and be like, hey, we'll get you through an RBT course and come work for us. So those are some ways you can use digital marketing to augment your recruitment efforts.
That's a good idea. Yeah, I never even thought about that. That's clever. Yeah,
That's very
that's
clever.
thinking outside the box for sure. Yeah, cool. Okay. And how, like, if you were going to suggest something, where should I spend my time? Where should I invest my time? Is it on Facebook posts, LinkedIn posts, or setting up correct SEO? Like, just curious what your thought is.
If you had to like choose.
Yeah, if you had to choose, yeah.
I think the most basic thing indeed is going to be your SEO. And just to have the basics down there correct, because ultimately, if you're not on Google, who's going to find you? It's only someone who gets a referral, and that's it.
And TikTok, what do you think? Is that a place to go, or?
For sure. And the clients ask me about it. It's been our position to avoid TikTok because of very serious ethical concerns with the platform. And obviously, the United States government has shown that it has national security concerns. And beyond that, there are ethical concerns in terms of, for example, showing very psychologically unhealthy content to very psychologically vulnerable people, which with real world consequences that are severe. So we actually stay off of TikTok for that reason. But we do find, however, that people are able to get plenty of business using Meta and Google. And hopefully, what the legislation that was passed in Washington recently will lead to some changes in how things are structured and make that a platform that someone could be proud to advertise on.
And then Twitter, is that because
it's not even Twitter, it's X.
Whatever, it's still Twitter. It'll always be Twitter. So is that somewhere where you would spend time, or is that just nah?
It's interesting. We explored their advertising features, and what became apparent to me is that X is really best suited for more mass market type of products rather than something like a service, just based on what options are available there in terms of targeting and creative.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, so
I stay away from all of this. I can't handle it. So it's just I'm too old, I think.
Yes,
we have people that take care of this stuff for us. I don't want to know.
Yeah, when we had to start branching outside of Facebook and learn like Instagram and like how they're connected now, and then like I don't even know. We might be on TikTok. I don't even know.
Yeah, we are.
Just recently, I don't know. And then like all LinkedIn, like all of the things, like my brain just explodes. And so like, and this is post like us having an agency, right? And so like 10, 12 years ago when we started and we were like marketing, it was mainly word of mouth, and we were, outside of DC in the suburbs. And so the sprawl was coming and there just weren't enough providers. And so once a couple people knew what we did, word traveled and we were plenty busy.
Yeah.
But then the last couple of years in practice were like during the COVID times anyway. So that was, hard for everyone. But then it became, finding staff and keeping staff in. And we started to kind of, play around with some of the social media aspects as far as helping us to grow our business and find staff. But it really wasn't until I stepped into the seat of helping Steven here at 3 Pi Squared that, I was on social media more than just a scrolling here and there, to like for a brain break. And so, I just sat here fascinated while I listened to you share all of this information so eloquently and so, in such a great way that I could understand. But even still, like, I don't know really like where to start. It's still very overwhelming, and I know that there are people who are much more savvy in social media and stuff than I am. I'm very aware of that. But even still, like, uh what are some like I don't know, what are some like downfalls or risk, or like what should people know as they're like, oh, I could do this, I'm just gonna jump in and do all the things. I heard what he said, I'm gonna take it and run with it. What are there things that they should watch out for?
Okay, so I think there are some things that are easier than other things to sort of take a do-it-yourself approach to. So, and again, it's not to say that with any of these things a professional wouldn't do better, but there are things that people can do. Let's start with the most basic thing. You need to have a Google business profile. Some people will say, but you'd be surprised by how many practices that aren't aware of this, that you can have a Google business profile. It's a free thing you can set up, and you really have to set it up if you want to get found. So you go to business.google.com, you create a profile, you tell all the information you can. If you are a service area business, I mean, you provide in-home services, you need to indicate that to Google Business, or they will try to send you a postcard to your, or they'll try to make you prove you have an office. They do that with a postcard that code to put in, or they could say, film a video of your storefront and show us that you really have a location where you claim to have it. So, working out of home or something, or it's an office without a storefront, you need to make sure that you indicate that you are a service area business that sends people to people's homes and not that people can visit. This is vital, otherwise you're not get approved. Okay? Then what you want to do is fill out every single thing you can. Any field that you can fill out with relevant information, you should fill out. And then as a bonus, what you could do is post things occasionally there, because that activity does correlate with getting better rankings in Google Business. Now, a second thing you can do is you can make absolutely certain that your website has this is basic stuff. You're going to say, Reece, but you're going to be surprised. You need to make sure you have it very clear on your website which locations you provide services in. Because a search for ABA therapy that is, that someone typed in is something that Google has to now figure out, well, okay, based on their IP address, they're in the certain area, so let's figure out which businesses in the area provide ABA therapy services and show those results. So if Google can figure out where you are located, then that's also going to be a problem. The Google Business Profile helps, and then also to have on your website very, very clear where you operate is important. And in fact, to have a page, a dedicated location that you service is important. So these are, again, just basics. Now, another thing is that, again, back to basics. Make sure your website looks nice and works well. Because the way this works is that when Google starts to place you in search results, they will observe how people interact with your website. So if lots of people click on you in search, when they click on you in search, they quickly click the back button and find something else to click on. Google will start to move you down the rankings because people don't like your website, right? So if your website doesn't look good, or it's too slow, or whatever, or if something is technical is not working there, then you're just not going to get anywhere, because Google will try to move you up in the rankings, and then they're going to demote you once they realize that your website isn't good. So these are just, again, basic things you can work on. Another basic thing to make sure you have is that on your website, in the header, people can see your phone number and click it to call. So you click to call enabled. This is really, really important. If you're on, think about it, if you're on a smartphone and you're going to a business website and you have to sort of search around and go to the contact page or whatever for the phone number, it's a bit irritating and inconvenient, and it actually will mean less phone calls. And that takes us to another thing, which is that as a business owner, you know what your services are, and you believe in yourself and your services. And there's a part of you that might be saying, listen, we provide great services, and if a parent is not willing to look for a contact page and then find the phone number and then highlight it and copy it and paste it into the dialer and dial it, then they don't deserve to work with us. It might be that voice inside of you, and I relate to that too. But the fact of the matter is that that's how people work, and people don't know you from anybody else, and they're going to make decisions that are behavioral, right? They're going to react to your website instinctively based on what they about how it works and how easy it is to use. And they're going to go for the easiest option possible as opposed to anything else, because that's all they have to go on. So make it really easy for people to get in touch with you. That extends to your contact form. So look, it's okay to have an intake form with 20 fields for people doing an intake form. But your contact form is not an intake form. It should be simple and easy so people will use it and not get turned off by the complication of putting in their whole life history into this form that when they've done you before. So again, these are things I think people can take responsibility for and do a good job with, without or at least they can direct a web designer to do that for them, and it's not rocket science.
Yeah, those are all great points.
Yeah, before you start, whether you go Google Ads or LinkedIn, is this something? Do you have a process, or do you help people with who is your client? Like, what are you looking for? What is your brand? How do you, like, what sets you apart from anyone else? Because I know, like, again, BCBAs, they've got like 80 hours of work a week, and without this, right? With billing and hiring, and like, dude, now I need to come up with a branding? No, I don't want to do that, right? And so, like, do you help them with that, or do you have any suggestions on how to start that? Because I find a lot of people, they're like, I'm just winging it, man. I guess I can work with this 12-year-old. I really like working with but I guess I'll take, like, so is there, do you have any suggestions or help for that?
Okay, that's a great question. I think there are at least a couple questions to unpack in there. So one is sort of what questions do you ask to just get clarity on who is your target market? And then two is based on what your target market is, well, what should your brand be? How do you develop a great brand? And then three is already into being selective or not being selective. You just take anyone who comes your way, or are you selective and making sure you're taking people based on certain criteria as opposed to anybody who qualifies at the basic level? So every conversation for me with an ABA therapy organization will start off with questions like, what ages do you take and what insurances, and where do you provide services? It's an in-center and home. And if you have multiple locations, which are the ones that need cases? Is all of them or just some of them? Questions like that. So you know exactly where we need cases. So that's just the basic place to start. Now, I probably could just decide to say I'm a branding professional. I'm not really a branding professional. So it's not my thing. That said, I do have my opinions. I can give some guidance. Someone reached out to me with a logo that yesterday that really was not good and didn't realize it. And I sort of explained why that logo reminds me of a funeral. And not to pick on anybody, but it does. And the person's like, oh, wow, you're right. And okay, so first we're going to work through that with them to help them get the help they need to rework the brand. The biggest thing I see that's sort of, I guess, irksome, I think, for everybody in the industry, is it's like there's only so many good names out there, right? Like, once someone takes a good name, it's sort of gone unless you copy them anyway. So there definitely are multiple practices based on the same one word. And I guess they hope they'll just get along and not sue each other. I don't know.
Stop putting puzzle in your name, people. Like, I've been saying that for a couple of years now, so stop it. Just stop it.
Uh, I definitely see a lot of people very cleverly go for a name that starts with A, so that in any list of providers, they're going to show up at the top, right? So everyone's doing that. I think the worst thing to do is to come up with like a gobbledygook name. And you see a lot of this, and sometimes it's just a bunch of letters, and the letters aren't particularly interesting, and you're like, it's just boring, you know. I've seen all kinds of names that have like 15 syllables in them, and I can't even remember exactly what it is. Is it behavior or is behavioral or was it? But I don't know.
Right, 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 right.
A lot of companies with these same recurring themes in their name. Um, so yeah, you do want to put some thought into it. There definitely are people who specialize in coming up with business names. If and then also if you're going to put in the proper time into finding a good business name, definitely have a competent trademark search performed. I put that as competent. Once I started, I got a trademark. I tried to get a trademark for something, and the lawyer thought that it was clear, and it wasn't, he had just made a very basic mistake uh, in missing something. And then, in general, obviously, you want to either keep it to something that's like very kid friendly in terms of how it sounds, in terms of how the logo looks, or something that's maybe a little more scientific, or that maybe communicates competence or an edge, a scientific type of approach to things, or both somehow. You know, I think those are those are the common avenues people will take. And you want to make sure that your logo is something that will look distinctive even when it's really small like this. Even there, you also want it to look decent when it's shown a little bit bigger, but this small, at the in the top left corner of your social media posts. So make sure it's not too complicated that the detail gets lost and impossible to look at when seen in small format. And also, a lot of designers love to go for more of a vertical orientation of a logo. If you're going to do that, make sure they also provide you with a horizontal one, because the way that most website designs are going to work is that your header is going to be in the narrow. It's whatever for the rest of it. If your logo is going this way, then it's going to mess up your whole header and it's going to all look weird. So there's are some things to think about with regards to branding, and with regards to selectivity, um, yeah. So you want to be selective. Um, I think from what I've gathered from people is that it's maybe more about the character of parents that you want to be selective about. Maybe uh, I'd say first is make sure the child is a child that you really believe you can help, and second, make sure as best as you can that's a family that you think you're going to want to work with, and then make sure you set strong expectations ahead of time, early in the sales process, before you even get to filling out an intake form, so that they understand that there are going to be some rules that they have to follow. Um, I think that would be my answer there. But that's only possible presuming you have enough people reaching out to you to be selected. Obviously, some businesses, right, can't be. And then, okay, so that's again a reason why you might want to consider having a really good marketing strategy.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I know like the struggle is real to get morning and midday clients, right? Like, and you're top heavy. Like I've got 100 million cases in the evening. I can take evening cases all day long, but the morning and midday I'm struggling with. So yeah, that would be a very good idea to do that marketing, especially on Google Ads, like you said, if that's the target audience that you're going for.
Absolutely. But always again, have in mind to remember a caveat that no matter how good your marketing is, there it's going to be a reality on the ground as to whether there are lots of cases like the ones you're looking for or not. Well, it's sort of like when you're trying to find a BCBA who's experienced and good with people. So in your area, well, if there aren't that many BCBAs like that in your area, it's going to be hard. In some regions of the country, some cities, you know, there are plenty of cases you can find who are going to take those morning or midday hours. And others, it's hard. You know, there's a handful of them, and they're motivated parents with the younger kids taking action quickly, and they're going to find someone on Google or through a referral and go with it. But be aware that sometimes there are objectives that because of the area you're in, whether it's because of competition or because of demographics or issues with getting a diagnosis, that are hard to reach in all honesty. So that, there are limitations to what platforms can do based on who is actually in the area that you're advertising in.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So you have to know like your area and what the
And
needs are.
how do you find that out? Like, is it just through, okay, I'll test Facebook and I'll test Google and I'll see what hits, or like, is there a better way of doing this?
You have to try. So, if budget allows for it, if you have a very specific thing that you're looking for, depending on how much competition there is in your area and depending on how easy it is to get a diagnosis in your area, you may say, well, we're going to have to go all out. We need to try everything available because we're not really sure what's going to work in advance. Uh, Other times, it's not like that. And some things will be surprised. You can't always know in advance. So you just try your best.
That's amazing. We really appreciate all of this information today. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you want to make sure that that we get in?
Yes. So I also want to say that it's really important to make sure you have a structured process for following up with your leads. And leads are people who are contacting you about services. And the and it's really important. If you think about how much effort and money can go into acquiring a lead, you realize how important it is to take good care of them. So a starting place is just, again, basics. Make sure there's someone who has a flexible schedule to be able to talk with parents at multiple times of days. And this can be really hard for someone who is, let's say, presently employed as a BCBA and starting their business, but can't really leave their full-time job right now. It's going to be a little harder, or a lot harder, to follow up with people because you have a job that you have to work during certain hours. And then you also want to make sure that the person who is going to take responsibility for talking with contacts through your advertising or website, whatever it is, that person is really committed to it and has some enjoyment doing it, at least some enjoyment doing it, and is personable. And this is such a good thing because I see sometimes that, by default, the person entrusted with this task is more secretarial in nature, and secretaries are great. Every type of personality has their place in the workspace, but you wouldn't take that person and put them into a sales role, right? But that's what you're doing once you're having them man the phones. Now, some people with a secretarial sort of uh, talent can actually be really, really good at the sales aspect of this. So it's not to say all secretaries can't do it. Like, I see clients of people who are more administrative doing a great job. I also see the opposite sometimes. You want to make sure that it's someone who really is going to be able to establish a personal connection, take the time to actively listen to parents and understand where they're coming from and what they need, and then represent you in a way that differentiates you from other people in order to move the process forward. And you want to structure to the point that okay, if I have a parent who is qualified and interested in services, I know I'm not hanging up the phone until I have the next in the calendar with them and I have their next action steps expressed, right? You want to think it through because otherwise what happens is you have a leaky pipe of people coming through your advertising and you just needlessly lose people. And that's unfortunate. And a final thing is something that we do a lot is to use marketing automation as well to assist with that process. Another thing is that and it's a longer topic, but I just want to bring it up. So as we all know, the BCB has some rules regarding what you're allowed to say in public statements with conversation, posts, advertising, and so forth. And of course, you want to make sure as a BCB that you are meeting your obligations to be compliant to the code. It's very interesting. It's been very interesting to discover that the way certain items in the code are written gives the impression that certain things are not allowed when, if in fact, if you talk with Dr. Jonathan Bailey in person, he's great to talk with, he will tell you that actually the application of that wording is more limited than you may have expected. Okay, so this is very, very important to know. And there is some degree I have found of common sense you can apply when weighing what you can and can't say. So that's also super important. And sometimes we've seen the BCB sort of go on the warpath and you can't say that our services could help people be happier, because that's not behavioral. And Dr. B says actually that is behavioral, and you can say that. So again, there are sometimes things you could do that you wouldn't know off the bat looking at the code. So I'll just mention that. Obviously, it's a longer discussion, but I think it's good to know.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I did have that on my list, and I was like going back and forth of whether do I bring this up today or do we come back again and talk about it, because we have a lot to say about it. But I am glad that you did mention that, because it's important. It's important to know. And I think the more that we research that and the more that we reach out and we find information and clarify those things, the better as a field that we can be. So
yeah, I mean, I think that, the vast majority of BCBAs, and like 99.9%, they just want to do the right thing. They want to do the right thing by the board guidelines. They want to make sure that they're treating their clients and their staff correctly. And so getting lost in the vagueness of the ethics can really be a struggle for a lot of people. And so they're just like, you know what, fine, I don't know, but I know if I just don't do it, then we're good. And then they get the one bad Google review, and now they have one bad Google review, and they, you know what I mean? And that can really be terrible for getting staff, right? Oh, I looked you up on Google. You got one star review. Why would I go there? So yeah, I think that is an area where any really good BCBAs on referrals and recommendations on this want to come on the podcast and clarify it, we would love to have you on, because that's an area that a lot of people struggle with. So yeah, I 100% agree with that.
I don't know, Bailey, if you're listening.
Yes.
We've been reaching out. We would love to have you. Not that Bailey listens to this podcast,
Yeah,
but hey,
not,
who knows? Maybe there's a connection somewhere. We would definitely love to have a further conversation on that for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, I think one thing that you brought that up was the one-star review thing, and that is a real issue. I know of a practice where a certain parent, had a very severe personality disorder and was being very verbally abusive to the therapists, as well as hitting their child during sessions. And after multiple warnings, the company had to terminate services. And that parent then went on a rant and left a very bad online review. And I understand that BECB is coming from a perspective of wanting to avoid any conflicts of interest or pressures that come from a dual direction relationship. And I think at the same time, I believe that if practitioners are able to start to speak up about this, that another part of this picture can come into play, which is that it's just a reality today of online marketing that if you don't proactively get good reviews, then unfortunate things and unfair things can happen, and it may not be possible to get that removed. And I think that's taken into account, especially because I think if you were to survey people at BCB and ask them, do you want there to be practitioners, BCBs who are successful in running practices and they're able to compete in the marketplace? They'd say, yeah, absolutely. And you can maybe point out that if someone is owned by a non-practitioner who can simply tell their administrator, please go ahead and ask everyone for reviews, that they will have a distinct competitive advantage over BCBM practices, that might start to get people thinking, because with the best of intentions, people who really, really mean the best and want the best for the people they service are put at a disadvantage. And I think that's important for whoever makes these decisions to really think through.
Yeah, it really does put a disadvantage on smaller BCBA businesses that may be doing all the right things. And we've talked about this on other podcasts, and the anti-ABA movement, and you know what, for 90% of it, I think it's totally justified. There's a lot of bad ABA companies out there, but even that, you can sometimes see where the anti-ABA group will just leave a bad review on ABA businesses because that's what they do, right? They are against ABA businesses, whatever the reasons, and so even that can, again, it can limit your outreach, and it can really take a a good practice down. Again, when you see, hey, this company has 5 1-star reviews and they have no good ones because we're not allowed to ask for them, that's a struggle.
Right. Well, I may be stating the obvious, but there again, like if anti-ABA movement people are going across looking at reviews and they're seeing more bad reviews than good reviews, that's just going to add fuel to the fire too.
Sure.
But yes, definitely would love to discuss this further. For sure.
It's a really difficult problem, and it would be nice to have some clarification. I think everyone would benefit from a little bit of clarification on how we can do this and still keep the client's information safe. But I know with our practice, like we shut off Facebook comments because we were, just like parents that loved our services and they just wanted to share how much we impacted their lives, and we're like, nope, you can't do it. Like, and it's difficult.
It's kind of off-putting for some of them.
Like, absolutely. So,
my little guy said his first word today, or he came home from school excited about a new friend, and they just wanted to be able to share it, and they tag us in it or something like that.
Yeah. So, and then so it would be nice to have the clarification. I agree 100%. And so,
I'll share one little tip that you can do, and the ethics code does not prohibit it at all. You can ask your staff to leave good reviews about working for you. And then at the very least, you'll have some 5-star review buffer.
Look at you. Amazing.
Cool.
I love that. Well, Reece, I really appreciate your time today and all of your knowledge, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you more.
Yes, and if anyone listening, watching wants to talk to Reece, he is at one of our business affiliates, and it's very difficult to become one of our business affiliates. I'm very happy that it's difficult. We did a lot of research on you, and again, like I said, the feedback we got was amazing. So if you go to our website, we will link it in the description. You can get a free consultation with Reece to go over how he can help you. And he can help you with your ads to get more clients. So again, I just really appreciate your time. Thank you for what you're doing in the field. It's such a value, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate so much being here, and I appreciate the work that you two do. And I see the difference that it makes for people starting practices to have access to incredible materials already developed to help with the infrastructure of their companies. So all the work you're doing is of tremendous value, and I feel so honored to be able to be one of your affiliates and also to be here on this podcast. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.